Now let's take our new mesh and begin sculpting some detail on the character. So this is 12 begin. It just has the new topology in it. And so at this point, let's begin to sculpt the detail. Now I don't want to sculpt any of the sort of rocky detail, but I just want kind of the overall shapes. And so we're going to be doing kind of three things. We're going to be building up, smoothing out, and cutting in. And so let's go ahead and subdivide this a few times. So I'm going to go ahead and subdivide it maybe up to level 4 at this point. We'll turn off the wireframe. And I'm going to start by using wax. And let me get kind of a smaller brush size. And I just want to come in and kind of build up this chest. And I don't want it to look too organic. I actually want it to look a little bit, mechanical. This is supposed to be kind of a plastic toy. And so I'm just going to come in and kind of build that detail up across the shoulders using Shift to smooth out any bumps that we might have. Again, using Shift to kind of smooth that out, we'll start to define that detail across the shoulder. And let's go all the way around to the back. You can hit the shoulder blades as well, again just kind of smoothing that out. So I like to build up the different areas. We'll do the same thing on the face. Okay, I want a bit more of a defined brow, so I can come in going up and down to kind of define that. Okay, same thing here. I can kind of go across to do that. Kind of do the same thing going back in here. Can start to define the cheekbone, kind of smooth one side of it out. We can come into the interior of the eye using Control and just cut in a little bit more of a defined area. Our brush size down a little bit. Again, I'm using symmetry right now. We'll come in across here. Let's kind of smooth that out. We can make a little bit of a indentation here. Just again, keeping in mind that this is supposed to be a molded plastic toy, so any detail we have, we want it to have a certain look to it. We can come in here and start to add a little bit of detail coming in along the mouth, kind of smooth that back in. Same thing here. And I can use grab to kind of pull up a little bit of detail on this. So maybe something like that. Go back to wax. And you can just start to define like the chin, things like that. All right. Let's use grab, and I'm going to pull the eyes in a little bit, or next to the eyes, so kind of add a little bit of shape to that. Something like that. Go back to wax. Add a little bit of detail along the head coming forward. Okay, and kind of smooth that back out. Now I want to start to add some divisions here, or kind of cutting in what we talked about. And so this will help us define certain areas. Okay, and then we can go back in and add. But we could use the knife, or we can use Sculpt with a very specific stamp. If we scroll over in the stamp tray, you'll see these stamps which don't really look like much. But if we click on one of these, make sure Randomize is off, they're going to allow us to get a really cool result. So this is going to allow us to get a nice cut. If we were to use something like, I think it's like this one, we can get a cut that has kind of a ridge on one side, and we'll actually use this in the next lesson. But for now, I want to use this last one. Let's increase our strength a little, and we can come in and use it to create cuts. And so I'm going to just come in here, cut along the sort of pectoral. Let's cut along here, and I'm going to use steady stroke so that we get a nice clean line. So I'll come in here and start it from this point, and let's come up and over the shoulder. This is a plastic action figure, so it's going to have these divisions at the joints probably. And so I'll come in and add that division all the way around. So something like that. Now with this we can use the same thing as far as inverting this. So we can use control, and we could come in and add a sort of line coming in here, and then a line coming up and across. So we can sort of add some thickness to it. Kind of smooth this back out. So you can see we added kind of some thickness there. Let's also add a little bit of a hint of an abdomen starting in the plastic. So something like that. We want it to be still very smooth on the surface, so we can come back in and kind of smooth that out. You can also use flatten, you know, if you want to kind of flatten out specific areas. That can help you do that too. We can also use pinch if we want to tighten up the creases that we made. That'll pull those a little bit closer together. We can do the same thing under here. Okay, let's go back to wax, and I can start to build up again this area on the shoulder where maybe we want him to have this sort of rocky look. So here we won't spend as much time making this smooth. We'll actually make this a little bit more bumpy as we add this rocky detail coming into the neck. Okay, we can go back to our sculpt, and I want to add some lines around the neck, so probably a division around that neck, but then also maybe some wrinkles coming in. Okay, let's turn off steady stroke, and then I can come in here and really spend some time adding some detail along the head. So I can come in here along the jaw. Same thing up here, kind of tighten that up. Okay, use control to sharpen that edge on the bottom of the upper jaw. Okay, and then we can kind of work that detail back in around the base of the eye. Again, not getting too organic with this. We want it to still look sort of designed. Bring that up. Can maybe smooth that out or flatten it out. And then add some lines up here. We can do the same thing coming in on the top of the head. Kind of add some of those lines coming in. Let's do the same thing here. I'll kind of sharpen this line, just holding down control. And then we can start to add some of those lines coming down. And you can play with the brush size that you have as well. Probably want to come in along the back and create some sort of a line coming in there as well. And then also probably up along the jaw. Okay, and then up into the rest of the head. So just doing that helps a lot in kind of just defining those edges and making those look appropriate. We can do the same thing down here. So, you know, I come in and define, you know, where these legs start. And then we could build up around that just by using control and kind of smoothing that back in, or we can come in here and use our wax. Make sure it actually gets selected. Sometimes you got to really push on it. And we can come in and just make that division a lot more apparent. And then, you know, all the joints, I want to have these sort of divisions here, so we can come in and add those in. Again, just using that special map. It's a vector displacement map. And we'll actually take a look at making our own vector displacement map in a couple of lessons. But it really allows you to get a lot of detail, more detail than you'd be able to get otherwise with another kind of map. So kind of smooth that back in. Just make sure that crease is nice and sharp. You know, and just adding that sort of detail really helps. You could come in along the hands here, okay, and we can start to maybe define areas along the hands. You can see where we may need a little bit more resolution in there, but we can start to kind of define that. Maybe along the wrist as well. Get a couple of lines in there coming in. We can also come in here and let's use bulge. We can start to kind of bulge out the fingers a little bit, I'm going to set the strength down a little bit lower. But we can come in and start to kind of bulge the ends of these fingers out if we want to. Okay, so I'm going to get it to a stage that's, you know, something like this. I could probably stand to increase this rocky detail up here a little bit more, and even, you know, around to the back, and we could just use grab to do that. So we've got the contrast of these kind of smoother areas, and then the lumpiness at the top. Now we are going to add rocky detail across the whole surface. He is, after all, a lava monster, but we want to do that in a special way that allows us to kind of make sure and have some flexibility when doing that. I'm going to just bring his quads up a little bit. Okay, kind of smooth that out a bit. And then, you know, you want to make sure to get the division along the knee as well. Let me pull that knee over just a bit. Okay, and at any time you can go down in your subdivision levels if it makes it a little bit easier to move things around. Go down your subdivision levels, and then when you go back up, you know, that detail is going to be fixed for you. Okay. We'll come in here and add a nice crease around the knee, and we can refine all of this, but we're just kind of getting all of our details blocked in. Maybe on the knee itself we've got kind of a raised area, so then we can go with our wax and start to build that up a bit. All right, so get it to a point that's something like this, and whatever asset it is that you're using, just get kind of the basic edges defined and some kind of a little bit of detail here, but not really any high-res surface detail, and then we'll add that in the next lesson. So next, let's look at how we can start to add some rocky surface detail to this guy, and we'll do it in a very flexible way using sculpt layers. So let's do that next.